Hello, my name's Rob Edwards and welcome back to my YouTube channel. And today we're going to be talking magic. Actually, specifically, we're going to be talking about the magic system in Robert Jordan's Wheel of Time series. Full disclosure, this video is inspired by Magic Week, I think it's called, over on the Witty and Sarcastic Book Club blog. For the record, Jodie, that is very difficult to say in a video. That was my third attempt, and it's about as good as it's going to get. Today I'm going to be talking about magic in Wheel of Time. I've got another article coming out later in the week, which is going to be talking about magic in the Discworld, Terry Pratchett's Discworld. So I can't believe I'm going to do the YouTube thing, but subscribe to make sure you don't miss out on that. Anyway. Here goes. Here's the article that I wrote for Jodie at the Witty and Sarcastic Book Club blog. The Wheel of Time turns. And what turns it is magic. Or more specifically, it's male and female halves of the true source, Sidene and Sidar. Every aspect of Robert Jordan's world is predicated on this fact, the existence of magic, and it is ingrained into everything we read. The existence of people who can channel, men who can use Sidene, and women who can use Sidar, touches almost every aspect of the world. Now, before I go any further at all, I want to be particularly careful about spoilers for the Wheel of Time. It is a massive investment of time to read, but Amazon is coming up with a Wheel of Time TV series. In fact, they just wrapped filming for season 1 of that. So hopefully a whole new audience is going to discover Robert Jordan's world, because I actually really love the Wheel of Time. I mean, let's not beat around the bush here. There were some books that were a bit of a slog, quite famously, but if you are really into it, if you really get into it, it is worth the time and effort. 14 books, 14 thick, heavy books. I think, if I am going to be spoiling anything, I think I'm safe to spoil things which happen in the prologue of book 1 of these 14 books. I think as a percentage of the amount of narrative to spoil, that's probably safe. So let me say that the male half of the One Power, Sidene, has been tainted by the Dark One, and male channelers are doomed to insanity as a result. One of the earliest victims of this insanity, at least in this turning of the wheel, was a character called Leustherin Telamon, who later became known as the Dragon. He goes insane, slays all of his friends and family, and then releases so much power, he reshapes the very geography of the world. I don't know if you ever looked at a map of the Wheel of the Time universe, but the map of the continent where most of the activity happens, it's kind of weird looking, and you can blame Leustherin and Sidene for that. What it means is, as they pick up the story centuries later, only women can safely touch the One Power. And that makes their order, the Aes Sedai, a significant power broker in the world. Look, I'm not going to argue here that sexism doesn't exist in the Wheel of Time. It absolutely does. But it is true that there are women of influence in almost every culture within the Wheel of Time world. For example, the story starts in the Two Rivers, a village which is so provincial that it doesn't even know what country it is in. But they've heard of Aes Sedai. They know what Aes Sedai are. They don't really trust Aes Sedai, but they have heard of them. But I want to talk about the magic itself, not the politics of the situation. So, what do we know about how the One Power actually works? In fact, quite a lot. Over the course of Robert Jordan's and Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, we spend a fair amount of time with people learning to channel, both male and female as it goes. We watch them learn, we watch them come to understand what their abilities let them do, and what the risks of those abilities are. To access the One Power, women have to surrender to Saidar, being careful not to be consumed by the desire to pull too much power into themselves, because if they do, they can risk burning the ability out of themselves or actually just blowing themselves up, essentially. Men, when they channel Saidin, they don't really talk about it as a surrender. It's a much more combative kind of relationship that men have with Saidin. And although they'd also have always this lure to draw more power, to take more power on, to draw more of the one power, they are always balancing that against this sort of oily, sickly disease taint which is placed there by the Dark One. Once you have embraced Saidin or Saidar, depending on your sex, the one power is used to create weaves using earth, air, fire, water and spirit. Women tend to be strongest with air and water weaves. Men tend to be strongest with earth and fire, about equally in spirit. But there are exceptions in the books to both of these. The weaves can be used for all sorts of purposes, the typical fireballs, miraculous healing. They can be used to influence the weather. They can be used to influence people when it comes down to it. Over the course of the series, we learn a great deal about the intricacies of how the power gets used. We learn the circumstances in which one channeler can or cannot detect another channeler or their weaves. We learn what happens if two channelers come into conflict, if they try and use the one power against each other, what options they have, and what options they don't have. Look, I'm really trying to be super vague here to avoid spoilers. What else do we learn? We see the way that channelers can come together to create greater magical effects, including noting that in the earlier ages, big circles of channelers to do the really powerful stuff required men and women to link in the same circle. And that was how the true wonders of bygone ages happened. Oh, to keep me on brand, I do actually have the Wheel of Time role-playing game from Wizards of the Coast. In this, there is a table, I'm not going to show it for you, of how many men and how many women are needed in what size circle. So, really sort of mathematically laid out in a table in the book. Now, that's not created for the role-playing game. That is derived from things which are said in the course of the series. Because, essentially, we're treating this magical system quite scientifically for a lot of it. I'm barely skating across the surface here. I've not mentioned the differences between and significances of items infused with power, Angreal, Ter Angreal, and Sa Angreal. We don't talk about the fact that they have lost weaves, but they are rediscovered, or new weaves are created. I'm not even talking about the nature of Tavern, and how they can influence the world around them. Burn me. There is a lot to explore in the magic system of this series. Still, if you're looking for a fantasy series which really explores the way magic works in the world and the implications of magic existing in the world, if you want to get really crunchy into the minutiae of how that magic system works, Robert Jordan's world is extremely detailed and will absolutely be up your street. It's not a series for everyone. It's a big investment of time, and it does have its problems, including some of the books quite definitively not being as good as some of the others. But, and any time I spend too much time with the Wheel of Time, I start talking like Wheel of Time characters, so light blind me for a wool-headed sheep herder. I love this series, and if you're into this kind of thing, you might too. Or, wait for the TV series. Thank you for joining me today. Join me later in the week when I will talk about magic in the Discworld. And also this week, I'm aiming to get the next episode of my podcast retelling of my novella, Improbable Cause, out as well. So there might be even 3 videos this week. So again, subscribe, like, all those YouTube things. I don't know why I'm saying that. But if you do have an interesting observation about the Wheel of Time magic or magic systems in general, feel free to put them in the comments. I will respond to anything that goes in there. Anyway, for the moment, thanks for watching, and I will catch you next time. Cheers.